Our market is maturing. Credit is easier to get, spending capacity is better than ever, which means your first car doesn't need to be entry spec. You can aspire for something bigger, something more feature-rich. The king of hatchbacks, Maruti Suzuki, identified this as an opportunity, and then they created a premium alternative to the Wagon-R. It was this, the Celerio. Its claim to fame was the automated manual transmission, which not only made the convenience of an automatic much cheaper to own and easier to access, but it also opened the gates for other premium entry-level cars to follow. The first of which was this, the Tata Tiago. And the latest is this, the all-new Hyundai Santro. This car not only brings back a very significant model name, but also happens to be a tall boy. That body style usually promises a roomier cabin, but their designs are often quite boxy as seen on the Wagon-R or the Stingray. The Santro, on the other hand, has a more contemporary design made up of flowing creases and a layered form, and not boring slabs put together. That said, their radical front end and a relatively more sober rear end isn't to everyone's taste. I quite like it, but only in its sober colors. The Tiago was Tata's first all-new car in the longest time, and when it came out in 2016, the design direction that it established has been liked by many ever since. The fine detailing of various elements like the grille, the lights, and even the wheel arches gives it a modern and upmarket stance without looking overdone in any sense. The Celerio has a slightly more understated design to it. It looks like a humble evolution of the Alto, which it is, but it is now begging for a significant facelift in the light of its new age competition. Both the Celerio and the Tiago also offer slightly beefed up looking variants in the Celerio X and the Tiago Energy, and I won't be surprised if the Santro follows suit with an active variant too. But I like these hatchbacks in their birthday suits, so let's get down to evaluating them. So which one of these three looks better? Well, we've always said design is a personal preference. For me, it's the Tiago. You see, the Celerio takes the path of least resistance, the easy way out. It uses the tried and tested shape of the Alto and scales it up a bit more. And I'm sure there are many out there who appreciate that. You move on to the Santro, well, let's just say the design is polarizing. The Tiago in comparison looks more handsome, the dimensions are more proportionate, and I think the flashier colors look better on the Tiago as compared to the Santro. They don't look like an afterthought. Moving to the cabins, let's begin with the Celerio. With only the Wagon-R to beat back then, the Celerio didn't have to one-up the tall boy by leaps and bounds. Thanks to its handsome exterior and the automated manual transmission, all it needed in the cabin was a more flowing design for the dashboard, a bit of oomph in the upholstery choices, and better contouring of the seats, and that did the trick. First mover isn't always at an advantage. The Tiago came in with better materials, sporty body-colored inlays, a roomier cabin, an excellent audio unit, and a turn-based navigation system. Despite the oddly tall front seats and a tiny infotainment screen, the Tiago's cabin has a pleasing vibe to it that not only is more appealing than the Celerio, but also makes the little Suzuki feel dated than what it is. With these cars and a few others serving as a yardstick, the Santro has been able to mix the best of all. The tall boy design ensures a spacious cabin, the seats have better contouring, the fit and finish is excellent. It has some best-in-class features like rear AC vents, and the connectivity options of the touchscreen infotainment makes this car feel like it's from a segment higher. It also has more storage pockets and a generous boot. So which is the better cabin of the three? Well, if you haven't noticed already, it is the Santro. It's got more storage spaces, it's got better space at the back, at the front, it's got better contouring overall, it's a more comfortable place to be in. It's also got a more feature-rich infotainment. Now, of course, this doesn't get satellite navigation, but if you are choosing this variant and you do get this touchscreen infotainment system, you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both of which now support Google Maps. And that is by far the most used satellite navigation application all across the globe. So if you have one of these, you have satellite navigation by way of your smartphone. Overall, the answer is yes, it is the Santro that has the best cabin of the three. Let us quickly take a look at how these three cars compare on the features and the creature comforts that they offer. The cars that we have for this comparison are the petrol variants mated to the automated manual transmissions. While the Santro and the Celerio bear identical outputs, the Hyundai runs a 1.1-litre 4-cylinder engine in comparison to the thrumming 1-litre 3-cylinder from Suzuki. The Tiago, on the other hand, goes with a more premium 1.2-litre engine. Of the three cars, the Santro has the most refined engine, and at idling, it is the most silent too. The Tiago's engine judders under hard acceleration, while the Celerio's engine, well, it's just too noisy. So which is the better drivetrain of these three, and how much should it matter to you in your daily life? Well, at least on paper, at least on the brochure, at least in terms of specs, it is the Tiago's motor that has a big advantage. It's got more power, more torque than the Santro and the Celerio, and the Revoltron motor also has the advantage of higher displacement. This is a 1.2, but at the same time, the Tiago is also a heavy car. Therefore, the Tiago has a lower power-to-weight ratio, and that shows. It is only a shade quicker than the Celerio in terms of outright and in-gear acceleration, but slower overall than the less powerful Santro. The Santro managed a 0 to 100 km/h run in 16.3 seconds, but its eager powertrain does take a toll on the fuel economy, making it the least efficient car of this test, with the Celerio still ruling the fuel economy throne. If you were to choose one of these three cars as your first car, then in all likelihood, the drivability in the city or getting a judgment of all the four corners of the car would be of top priority to you. And from that standpoint, the Santro absolutely nails it. The glasshouse is large, so getting clear visibility from either of the corners of this glasshouse is very easy. And you also get a slightly higher seating, so you get a more commanding view of the road as compared to what you get in the Tiago or in the Celerio. That also makes it quite easy and more confident to drive in tight spaces. And speaking of tight spaces, this one also has a really tight turning radius, which again makes it quite easy to drive. So which is the better automated manual transmission to choose from? Well, in terms of pure shift quality, I think the Tiago just nails it. It has the best shift quality of the three AMTs that we are testing here. But in terms of sheer responsiveness, it has to be Hyundai's AMT. And for a first attempt, I think it's a commendable job. It responds really nicely to path throttle and full throttle inputs. It's ready to drop up to 3 gears. It's ready to also rev all the way to the red line. In comparison, the other two AMT boxes, the one in the Tata and the one in the Maruti Suzuki, they seem a little too eager to rush to higher gears to give you better fuel economy. This one does that too, but when you actually go pedal to the metal, which you won't often, but if you do, this is more responsive. The AMTs on both the Celerio and the Tiago feel sluggish in comparison. Around the twisties or on inclines though, all the three AMTs seem to lose their bearings, often fluctuating between second and third and not making much progress. You're better off using the manual mode in such scenarios. So which of the three has better handling? Again, it is the Tiago. Just the way it has an eager motor, it also has eager handling dynamics. Show it some bends, and this car loves to have fun. The Santro, on the other hand, feels a little wallowy because of its tall boy design. The Celerio, the tires, or rather it feels under-tired, that's the word that I like to use for it. This one, in comparison, has a more balanced overall handling dynamics. It also feels more stable at speed, which means it's also a very good highway cruiser. The Celerio has better steering and brakes though, both progressive, intuitive and precise. Despite its skinny tires, it's quite fun to drive like a typical entry-spec Suzuki, and its humble power output never really overpowers you. From a safety standpoint, the three cars are quite closely matched, with at least a driver side airbag and ABS being standard. While all the three cars claim structural safety to be compliant with front and side impact collision impact norms that are laid down by the Indian government, there's no available crash test data to quantify those claims. Let's now answer the most important question. Which one of these three is the cheaper to own? Well, cost of ownership has always been Maruti Suzuki's strong point, and that holds true for the Celerio as well. It is cheap to own, it's cheap to service, the spares are cheap as well. But it's astonishing how Tata has managed to undercut the Celerio on all these counts with the Tiago. Furthermore, it also has a longer service interval, 15,000 kilometers compared to the 10,000 kilometer service interval for the Celerio and the Santro. For Hyundai, cost of ownership, cost of spares, cost of service has always been slightly on the higher side compared to the other cars in the segment, and that doesn't change with the Santro either. Their comeback to it, however, is that they're offering better service packages, up to 2 years of free service. They're also offering a better warranty package. You can opt for up to 5 years compared to the 2 to 3 years for the Celerio or the Tiago, which I think in my books is a very strong point. But speaking of points, it's the final number of points that will decide a winner. So, time to sum it up. The Tiago gets top points in the design department. The Santro scores higher in the performance department on the merit of quicker outright and in-gear acceleration despite the low output. It also has better refinement of the powertrain. The Celerio is the least refined of the lot, and it shows. While the Santro and the Celerio aren't as stable under high-speed braking as the Tiago, both have a more progressive braking feel, and therefore they all score the same points. The Santro has a noticeably better ride quality than the other two cars, which is a big deal. The Tiago is more stable at speed, while the Celerio is more fun to drive. The Santro scores higher again for better cabin and a fatter list of features. The Celerio scores the least. The Tiago has a lesser kit than the Santro, but is the only one to offer up to 2 airbags even for the automatic variants. The Celerio bounces back with a higher fuel economy, but in the final tally, the Santro and the Tiago surpass it by a fair margin. The Santro scores top marks overall, and in that, it sets a new benchmark that is going to be hard to beat.